we have a square root of x plus 10 equals 5 minus the square root of 3 minus x. So I need to get rid of the square roots, but I've also got this 5 over here that is not under the square root. Is there any way I could put that 5 underneath the square root? There's not. I could try like moving it over to the other side, but I can't add it to anything that's inside of the square root because it's not under a square root itself, right? So there is no way I can get this 5 to be on the inside of the square root. So this is going to make this more difficult. So what you're going to have to do for these problems, I like to draw myself a line right here, is we are going to square both sides. On the left-hand side, that's going to be very helpful. I'm squaring a square root. I'll get x plus 10. That's beautiful. On the right-hand side, when I have 5 minus square root of 3 minus x squared, that means this, 5 minus the square root of 3 minus x times 5 minus the square root of 3 minus x. You have to, when you square something, you have to square everything on both sides, right? So we have to put parentheses around everything on that right-hand side and square it. And we cannot square them separately because that wouldn't be equivalent. Think about if you had like 2 plus 7 squared, right? That would be 9 squared, which is 81. It would not equal 2 squared is 4 and 7 squared is 49. That would be 53. That would not be correct, right? So, so you can't square the pieces separately. It'd be nice if we could because the square roots would go away really beautifully. But you have to square that whole side in parentheses. So I'm going to write it twice. If you are really, really good at square, double square, you can do this without writing it twice. If you square this, double the middle, and square the last, it can be done. I am going to make the assumption based on my many years of teaching pre-calculus that there are only about 3 or 4 of you in here that are really that good at square, double squaring and can do that without writing it out. So I'm going to write everything out. But if you can do it correctly without writing it out, please go ahead. When I work on myself, I do that part in my head, but I would not advise it unless you are an expert. So we're going to distribute here. 5 times 5 is 25. Then we got to do 5 times negative square root of 3 minus x. You cannot multiply those together because, or you can, but you can't combine anything because the 5 is not under the square root. The other stuff is. So you're just going to write it like this. Negative 5 square root of 3 minus x. Just write them next to each other. That means they're multiplied together. And so when I multiply the middle terms, I've got negative square root of 3 minus x times 5. I get another 5 square root of 3 minus x. If you are doing it correctly, those two middle terms should be the same every time. And so I've done my first, my outers, my inners. Now I need to multiply the last two terms together. I've got negative square root of 3 minus x times negative square root of 3 minus x. That negative times negative will give me a positive. What is the square root of 3 minus x times the square root of 3 minus x? It's just 3 minus x. Okay. And this looks worse than it did to begin with, really, right? So these problems, it has to get worse before it gets better. So we want to combine anything we can combine on that right-hand side. So I've got 25 there. And then what about when I combine these two? I got this negative 5 root 3 minus x and another negative 5 root 3 minus x. What's that give me when I put those together? Negative 10 square root of 3 minus x. Oh, I'm going to go ahead. Let me back up a little bit. Instead of 25, at 25 I could put the 3 with it, right? So 28. Let's do that. And then I got a minus x over here. Alright. I still have a square root in this problem. I can't solve for an x while I have a square root in the problem. Alright. So I need to get rid of that square root. And if I want to try to get rid of this square root right here, I need to get rid of the other stuff that's over there with the square root. So let's add this x to put it over here and subtract that 28. So that's going to give me 2x minus 18 equals negative 10 square root of 3 minus x. Alright. So, I need to get rid of that negative 10. How would I get rid of it? Alright, here's the problem if I divide though. If I divide, are these numbers over here divisible by 10? They are not. If they were, I would definitely go ahead and divide. But if I divide right now, I'm going to get 1/5 x minus 9/5. Or plus, I guess I'll get negative 1/5 x plus 9/5. And then the next step is going to be to square both sides, and I'm going to have to square, double square with the 1/5 and the 9/5. And I don't mind fractions, but they do take longer, and I try to avoid them whenever I can. And I never go decimals instead, though. Decimals don't do decimals. So there is a way I can do this and avoid the fractions. So rather than dividing by that negative 10, because it's going to give me fractions, is there a number that would go into these that will at least reduce it a little bit? 2. Let's divide by 2. Sometimes there's not a number here that would work for. So that'll give me x minus 9 equals negative 5 times the square root of 3 minus x. So at least those numbers are a little bit smaller, but I don't have fractions. And so I am going to square both sides, even though that negative 5 is still there. Okay? So on the left-hand side, I've got x minus 9. I have to square double square for this. So, Lucian, what am I going to get when I square double square? Yes. Almost. You want to multiply these together and then double them. So x times negative 9 give you negative 9x. But then you want to double it. So you'll get a 18x here. And then for the last term, plus 81. Good. Okay, so that's what we get on the left-hand side. These two things right here are multiplied together, right? So when I have stuff that is multiplied together, I can square them separately. Only if they are multiplied together, not if they're added or subtracted. Because over here, I could not say this is x squared plus 81. I could not just square those two separately because they have a minus sign in between. But right here, this stuff is multiplied together, so I can square these two things separately. So when I square negative 5, I'm going to get positive 25. And what do I get when I square the square root of 3 minus x? 3 minus x, I'm going to keep it in parentheses because those two pieces are still multiplied together. We're okay there? Uh-huh. Because do like 5 minus 3 and get 2. 5 is not under the square root. Right, only if it was multiplied right there. So since we had that minus sign right there, it had to be written twice and multiplied together. Or you could square, double square if you're really good. Square, double square with this is a little tougher though, so I didn't attempt it. But because of that minus right there, you cannot do what we just did right here on this right-hand side. But whenever it's multiplied like we have here, you can just square both of them. So do you guys see that difference there? So it's starting to look a little better now. We don't have any square roots anymore. We need to distribute that 25. So we'll get x squared minus 18x plus 81 equals 20. Oh, no, not 20. 75 minus 25x. This is going to be a quadratic. So we'll move everything to one side. So we will add 25x and subtract that 75. So x squared plus 7x plus 6 equals 0. And we can factor plus 6 plus 1. And then x equals negative 6 and x equals negative 1. We're okay here? You need to plug those in and check. It's really, really, really important. Like with you need to plug in and check with the problems that you had on the quiz also. But it doesn't happen that often that those are extraneous. There was one on one of the forms that was extraneous. But, and you guys did a good job of checking. But this happens most of the time when you get 2 answers, one of them does not work. More often than not. Now, sometimes they both work. So, this will be calculator active. So, let's use our calculator here to save us a little time. So, let's try negative 6. So, I'm going to do square root of negative 6 plus 10. And that gives me 2. When I do 5 minus the square root of 3 minus negative 6 here, I also get 2. So negative 6 works. That is a good answer. And then if I try, it was negative 1. Alright, so I've got square root of negative 1 plus 10. I realize I could be doing this in my head also, but I want you guys to see it. And then 5 minus the square root of 3 minus negative 1. Those two also equal each other. So this one does have 2 answers. I'm telling you though, this happens like in a minority of the problems that both answers actually work. So you want to check every time. Okay, questions? All right, let me zoom out here so we can just see that whole problem. Oh, isn't that beautiful? This looks like the stuff that like crazy geniuses write on windows in movies or something. You know, like if you ever watch any movie where there's someone who's usually insane doing math like all the time, and they have those like clear windows. Yeah. I see it like more on the whiteboard sometimes too, or chalkboard. Better in a movie to do a chalkboard.
This is the easy version of Jack's homework.
Yeah. Yeah. Jack's homework is longer. Yeah. Yeah. Calc 2's got some crazy stuff in it. Addison Blackwater sent me a picture of his the other day from Calc 2. I'll find it for you in a second. That was pretty cool.
It's not as bad when you do, I guess.
Oh gosh, I can't take that right there, Caleb.
Just follow the arrow.
I don't like arrows. I like to use up lots of space. I like to work vertically.
But I write really big.
You do what you need to do, Caleb. As long as you're getting the answers right. Yeah, I've got to work down. There are a few types of problems I will work across sometimes, but most of the time, especially equations like this, I got to work down. If I go across, yeah.
You said that we're going to have a lot of space now.
Yeah,
I got scared, so I did.
you do what you want there, Caleb. As long as, however you're working is easy enough for me to follow, and it's not causing you to make mistakes, I don't care.
On the test, I'll do it that way.
Yeah. As long as I can follow it and it's not causing you to make mistakes. Some students, their work is so messy that it causes them to make mistakes. But
That's me.
I wouldn't want to cause you distress by looking at my work.
yeah. Daniel Bautista,
Oh, Lord. He was in my AP.
even though he knew it got on my nerves, so I think he was just doing it to get on my nerves. But that was,
He did whatever he wanted to with no
Yeah.
repercussions. So.
you know him well enough to know then that
Yeah.
that's his personal.
Is that a double equal sign?
That's like Hunter does that to Henry sometimes.
Is that a double equal sign?
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't. Yeah, Selena's much better to ask. I mean, Daniel was great at it, but I know what you mean. I love Daniel,
Negative.
but I know exactly what you mean. But he purposely drives me crazy. No, it's not supposed to be a double equal sign.
Okay.
Is it? The question? No, I don't think it's supposed to be a negative.
Okay, so is it just...
Yeah. All right, no double equal sign on that. That was my mistake.
And it's no negative.
No, I don't think there was a negative. I think a negative would mess us up on this problem. All right. Okay, let's do this problem. All right, we're at almost 18 minutes. Let's see how fast we can do it. Won't do it too fast. I don't want to. I talked a little before, I think. All right. We're going to square both sides. On the right-hand side, easy peasy, a plus 12. Left-hand side, not so much. A plus 21 minus 1. A plus 21 minus 1. Again, if you're very confident in your square double square skills, you don't have to do it this way, but I want to make sure everybody's with me. So, we will distribute right here. Square root of a plus 21 times square root of a plus 21 is a plus 21. Then we will do the outside. We will get a negative square root of a plus 21. When we do the inside terms, we will get another negative square root of a plus 21. And then negative 1 times negative 1 gives us a positive 1. Let's see here. Okay, here. So if we combine what we can combine, we'll have an A plus, we can put the 21 and the 1 together, which will give us 22. What do I get when I combine those two square roots of A plus 21? Get negative 2 square root of A plus 21. It's like they both have a negative 1 in front of it, so you're just adding those together there. Okay. Something nice is going to actually happen on this. This one's not as bad. I need to subtract this A. What happens? They're gone. So that's going to make it easier than the last problem. I also need to subtract that 22. So I got negative 2 square root of a plus 21 equals negative 10. And this time, I can divide by negative 2, right? I mean, you could square it as it is right now, but negative 10 is divisible by negative 2. So just go ahead and divide this time. So square root of a plus 21 equals 5. All right. Square both sides. A plus 21 equals 25. Subtract that 21. A equals 4. Yeah. Let's see. Can you still see it if I zoom out like that? All right. We got to check to see if it works. So if I do the square root of 4 plus 21 minus 1, that gives me 4, and the square root of 4 plus 12 is square root of 16, which is also 4, so that works. So this is your answer. 7 or 8, I think. We did that. Look, though, we did that one in 4 minutes. Under 4 minutes. I spent a long time explaining the first one. All right. All right. Let's keep going so we can get to our homework. All right.
That would be great.
I did, and it works. Okay? All right. Questions? I will warn you of this. You need to plug your answers back in and check to see if they work. Like, if 4 did not work here, the answer would be no solution. However, if you are doing the homework and you are getting no solution for a bunch of problems, it's probably because you're solving it wrong, you're getting the wrong answer, and of course it's not going to work when you plug it back in because it's the wrong answer. So it may happen once or twice, but if you see no solution, no solution, no solution on several, you're solving it wrong probably is what's happening. Okay, here's another one. Oh, there's strangers in the hallway.
This one should be self-explanatory.
No. Did you get, Caleb, do you have, don't write this down, guys. Do you have 2x plus 1 plus 2x plus 6?
No.
Okay. Not anymore.
Just like that.
All right, so
In my head.
if some of you want to do that, where you, all right, don't do this. Where you square both sides, you're not going to get this. You've got to write it twice. All right, now I'm going to, just real quick, I'm going to start it like that, but don't write this down because it's harder than it needs to be. That would mean that you are doing the square root of 2x plus 1 plus square root of 2x plus 6 times the square root of 2x plus 1 plus square root of 2x plus 6. Again, don't write this down. We're going to do it a different way. That'd be 2x plus 1. This is going to be the square root of 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 6. And you got to multiply that junk together. And then you got to do that again. Alright, it can be done this way. But this right here, having to multiply that stuff together, so then you end up with like a square root of 4x squared plus 14x plus 6. That underneath the square root, I don't like. It can be done. You can do it this way. It's possible. So if you're like, I don't believe you, Miss Hyatt, this is the way I want to do it, go ahead. You can. It can be done. It's not too awful, but I just don't like it. So, let's back up. Get your pencil out now. I want you to do what I'm going to do now.
It's my fault.
I prefer to only have a single square root. So what I do is I just pick one of these. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to pick the second one. And I move it over to the other side. So I make it look like this. Square root of 2x plus 1 equals 5 minus the square root of 2x plus 6. So that it looks more like those other problems that we were doing in the beginning. And then I square both sides. Once again, it can be done the other way if you want a challenge there. So this is 5 minus square root of 2x plus 6 times 5 minus the square root of 2x plus 6 here. So we got 5 times 5 will give you 25. Here we've got 5 times negative square root of 2x plus 6, so that's going to be minus 5 square root of 2x plus 6. We're going to get the same thing in the middle, minus 5 square root of 2x plus 6. And in the last part, we're going to get plus 2x plus 6. Okay, questions so far? All right, let's combine. So I'm going to put that 2x right here. 25 and the 6 is going to give me 31. And I'll have minus 10 square root of 2x plus 6. Oh, look, this is not as bad either. This is like the last problem. My 2x's cancel, which makes it a little bit easier to deal with. I'm going to subtract that 31. So I get negative 30 equals negative 10 square root of 2x plus 6. Alright, okay here. Alright. Now, I want to get rid of that negative 10. It will divide here, so let's divide it. We're going to square both sides. Subtract that 6. So we get 3 equals 2x. Divide by 2. 3 halves is our x. All right here. We'll zoom back out. Oh, gracious. Okay, so if I plug it back into the original, I'm going to use 1.5 to plug in just because the decimal is easier to type in. So square root of 2 times 1.5 plus 1 plus the square root of 2 times 1.5 plus 6. That does equal 5 to the other side, so this is correct. I promise there are a lot of extraneous solutions, but I sure didn't put many on these problems right here, did I? I promise it does happen a lot. It's just like this. So if you can do this, you can do that. 7 or 8, I think. All right, let's see. All right. I'm trying to think if there's a reason we need to do this one. I think we need to do this one. Because this one has all square roots. Yeah, I'm going to skip example 4. I don't think there's any... I can't remember anything special about number 4. 4 probably had an extraneous solution, and I may be skipping the little one I put on there that had an extraneous solution. I promise it happens. Always plug your answers back in. Alright, let's try this one because this one is all square roots. Yeah. Alright. So, for this problem, everything is underneath the square root. You may be tempted to square both sides and just cancel out all the square roots. You cannot do that because you have this minus sign in between here. So, you can square them where they're at, but I like what Caleb said here. I would really like the two simplest square roots to be on the same side. You can't, so like if you add the square root of k, you cannot add it to the square root. So we can't make it like square root of 3 plus k. The properties of square roots just don't allow us to do that. But it does at least get the two least complicated square roots over on the same side. You don't have to do it this way, but I think it's going to make it a little bit easier if we do this. But you cannot put those together. Because think about, like if I had square root of 4 plus square root of 9, that is 2 plus 3, which is 5, right? That's the correct way to do it. If I try doing this, I would get square root of 4 plus 9, which would be square root of 13, and that does not equal 5. So you cannot add the 3 and the k together there. But moving it over here makes it a little bit more simple. A little bit. So I'm going to square both sides. I'll have k plus 9 over here on this left side. And I'm going to write this twice. And so square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. What's square root of 3 times square root of k? It is square root of 3k. Because square root of 3 times square root of k, the square roots only cancel each other out if it's the exact same thing. So like when we did square root of 3 times square root of 3, that was the square root of 3 squared, because it's written twice, and the square root and square cancel. But whenever you're multiplying square root of 3 times square root of k, you don't have the same thing under the square root, so it's just square root of 3 times k. You can multiply things that are underneath the square root together. You cannot add things that are in separate square roots. Yeah, so like if I had square root of 3 times square root of 7 for some reason, which you won't on this problem, that would be square root of 21. So you multiply the two things under the square root together. And so you'll also get another square root of 3k right here in the middle. And then we do square root of k times square root of k. So if we're multiplying exact same square root, square root of k times square root of k, we just get k. Oh, principal fellows. Those are principal fellows, I think. Yeah, it's like, it's teachers that are in school to get their masters to be principals. It's a special program. Coach Poplin's doing it. I think it's his group. I think like the first year of it you do work and the second you don't. So like I may be wrong, but I don't think Coach Poplin will be here next year. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's how the program works. Yeah, I think the first part you do like most of your coursework, and then the second part you got to go like do your internship part of it. Yes.
I know Friday's the last day here this semester.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his wife is having a baby.
Oh, well, yeah. Gotcha on that. Yeah. All right, so this is going to be 3 plus k plus, right here we're going to get 2 square root of 3k, like that. And so we will subtract the k. Oh, look, that's so nice when that cancels out, isn't it? Really, on that first one was the hard one.
Do they ever have, are there many that don't cancel out? Like, is it more rare to find one that cancels?
I'd say about half and half. If we had done number 4, it would not have canceled there, but I skipped it. All right. We can divide off that 2. So we get 3 equals the square root of 3k. We will square both sides. 9 equals 3k. Divide by 3. And 3 equals k. Which hopefully is going to work. Because if it doesn't, it's no solution. If we plug it in, so let me just zoom out so we can see it. If we plug it in, we get square root of 3 plus 9 minus the square root of 3. That gives us this decimal. If we do the square root of 3, that gives us the same decimal, so it is correct. So 3 is our answer. I'm pretty sure 4 had an extraneous solution on it, but we skipped it so that we could have a little time for our homework. All right, so your homework is a little bit different today. It came from the pre-cal textbook, but I do not pass the pre-cal textbooks out anymore because I have slowly, I don't love the book, and I have slowly, in a way, almost created my own textbook. Mostly we use worksheets and Delta Math and a combination of all that stuff. So I only use the book occasionally, and it's not worth it to me to pass it out, and you guys have a book you got to keep up with. So what I have done today is on Canvas, I have just put a picture of it from the book. So you will need your computer, and it is on your own sheet of paper. So it's going to be this homework 3.5b, and you're going to do 75 through 82. So 1, 2, 3, yeah, 8 questions. And I did put the answers down here so you can check your work. And so you're just going to, it comes, I don't even know if that's actually from this textbook. It might be from a different textbook that I have somewhere. Get me, do tonight's first. I'll give you till Monday on the other one if you don't have time to get them both done. Okay?